Good morning, afternoon, or night, wherever you are. If you're a dev, doesn't matter anyway. I'm Nathan James, and as always, we're just going to dig right into the tech. But before we do, make sure that you join the Antelope Developers Chat if you're a dev at t.me/Antelope Devs. And if you're not a dev, what are you waiting for? Go on and open up our docs at docs.eosnetwork.com, shed that normie skin, and join us nerds at the cool table. All right, enough marketing, let's get on with the show. Leap 5.0 has officially been released. We talked about this a little bit last time, but let's do a quick recap with the release notes. We have up to 5 times faster execution of system contracts like EOS.io, EOS.io.token, and EOS.io.evm, up to 4 times speed improvement and more reliable calls to APIs that rely on deserialization. And as an added benefit of these changes, Get block will now always return fully deserialized blocks, whereas before there was an annoying issue where it returned semi-deserialized blocks due to timeouts. No longer an issue. Up to 20% reduction in system memory consumption by state database, though an upcoming article seems to suggest there might be more than expected, but we'll have to wait for the article. I think it's from Ross. High skill read-only transactions with parallel processing up to 128 parallel threads. Gotta love threads. Support for larger transactions with relaxed constraints, more reliable block production by optimizing block start times to reduce latency between rounds, and customizable endpoints for more control over networking. A lot of this has already been running by BPs on the EOS mainnet, so we're probably seeing a lot of the benefits of this live. But the more nodes that come online with this, the more benefits we'll start seeing. For the EVM, we have EOS EVM node 0.7 that was released with my favorite feature, WebSocket support. You can now use WebSockets for your front-end applications with Web3.js, Ethers, or any other WebSocket supporting provider. So you're free to tap into EVM events, which actually, for me, this was a big hassle as I had to find weird workarounds to try to get around this. So I'm really happy to see that this is now available. Support for the block parameter in ETH call, which is one of the RPC endpoints, is also now available. This opens up support for the graph, meaning that you can now have GraphQL support for EOS EVM, which is very cool. And there's also fixes related to nonces and HTTP connection limits. Bug fixes, we all love that they happen. Not particularly interesting, but love to see it. We have some new tokens added to the bridge, as they mentioned before, MLNK, Malinka, and Chex, the Shintai Exchange token. Moving along, we're going to tooling and community updates. There are some new RAM improvements, which is being spearheaded by EOS Nation's Denis. These include a few new actions to improve the usability of RAM and developer experience. We have transferring RAM, which is pretty much what it says on the box. You transfer RAM from one person to another. You also have the ability to burn RAM, which basically sends it to the EOSIO.null account, if I'm not mistaken. And then you have buy RAM self, which this one is a little bit interesting. Previous to this, or currently all we have is buy RAM, which buys from an account to an account. But the problem with this is that you could actually use it to siphon off somebody's EOS if you were to, let's say, whitelist this. So there's no safe way to set up a session key using Anchor or WharfKit, or make this a whitelisted action that you could just run on a website without having to sign it again and again with your wallet, because you could siphon off somebody's EOS by transferring their RAM to you and then selling it off. But with this new buy RAM self, you don't really have that concern anymore, because you can only buy RAM for yourself, meaning that there's no incentive for a hacker to abuse this. It'll be great for some applications that we can build on top of this later that we'll actually get into in a second. And then there's return values for all of this stuff. So return values is a relatively new concept in Antelope and EOS, where actions that you call on the blockchain can return some kind of result. UN64, a struct of your own making. And these will now be accessible for all of the RAM actions. A historical problem that we've had, or I guess a nuisance, is that you had to go and get the account data after you did any of these RAM actions in order to repopulate the RAM data on a wallet or some kind of integrated website, because calculating all of the Bancor algorithm yourself, not really viable, not something people want to do. So now this returns all of that data from the actions that you're calling, buy RAM bytes, sell RAM, or any of these new actions. And then finally, there's also a new set of logging actions, which allows developers to build composable contracts on top of buying and selling RAM by listening to those events, which opens up doors to quite a few new applications. We have new functionality for the Web IDE, which it now exports WASM compatible with the vert JavaScript Antelope testing framework. It's a very cool framework. Allows you to write tests using code you can share with your front ends because, of course, your front ends is JavaScript mostly. Allows you to move time within tests, check time-based logic. This has always been a problem with C++ tests or Bash-centric tests because you can't really move time on your local running Node.js instance. But here, since this is a virtual environment, you could just move to whatever time backwards or forwards and then run your tests that way. This works like Mocha and Chai, or Jest, if you're familiar with those JavaScript testing frameworks. And if you're not familiar with those JavaScript testing frameworks and you're a JavaScript developer, I really don't know what to tell you. You should be familiar with them. New framework called Fuck Yeah for building smart contracts. You can write EOS contracts and compile them on any operating system. You don't even need to install anything if you already have Node.js on your machine. You can just use npx commands. You can write tests in JavaScript using vert, write deployment scripts to push and set up contracts on any network, and also scaffold contracts, tests, and deployments using an extremely simple CLI. Also, it's called Fuck Yeah, so that should be all the reason you need to try it out. WharfKit also has some new updates. We have read-only transaction support added, which personally I'm a little bit angry about because like 3 weeks ago, I had to create an application for read-only transactions and it wasn't supported, so I had to use EOS.js and I was a little livid, and now it's added. So yeah, but support for return values is also added here. So the RAM actions, for instance, that we talked about before, you can now use these directly within Wharf and you'll get it back nicely from just calling the actions from a transaction. Atomic Assets Library 1.0 has also been released, so you can go ahead and use those with the atomic assets. And then there was, of course, various bug fixes. Like I mentioned before, we love to see them, not particularly interesting, but it's good to see them there. Thalos was also released from EOS Sweden. This makes it easy to stream data from a ship node. It also allows filtering by the contract and action so that you can get the information you need. A little similar to the previous demux, but much better architected. Has multiple channels you can tap into, like transactions, actions, rollbacks, and table deltas. Very cool to see some advancements in the history because we haven't really seen much of that recently. Then finally, last but very much not least, one of my favorites here is the drops contract by Greymass. This allows you to create drops, which are containers for seed data. Each drop costs a deterministic amount of RAM, so this is actually wrapping the whole concept of RAM only viable on EOS, which makes it cool, or I should say only viable on Antelope chains. You can transfer drops to others, which means that right now we already have the ability to transfer RAM, though it is through this drops mechanism, so it's not as clean as just having the transfer RAM actions that we talked about before. And then other applications can build functionality on top of the transferability and the data held within the drops, which is a little bit more important because this now serves as an on-chain RNG base, so you can have some kind of reveal commit scheme, and there is also contracts there for that, which allow you to build composable applications on top of this with on-chain RNG. That's it for the developer updates from this month. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. We'll see you soon.